Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, where we chat about everything that is surprising and delighting the marketing world this week. I'm Jenny Mywin, reporter at Marketing Brew.
I'm Kelsey Sutton, editor.
And I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
Today, we are running through what marketing opportunities are at marathons, some big Netflix moves, and yet another new award show for creators. Ready? Let's do it. So, I don't know if you guys have heard, but the Louvre was famously robbed recently.
What?
I know.
No way.
Can you believe that I'm breaking
That
the news
was not
to
all
you?
over the news.
I know.
I just got back from Paris, and something went really well for me there.
Did you get any souvenirs?
You'll never tell. I'll never tell.
Just a couple sparkly things. Don't worry about it. Right. Well, I bring it up because you would think it's a serious matter, but the fact that we're joking about it is relevant because everyone's joking about it, and it's become a marketing opportunity, particularly for the new film, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is a film franchise literally about illusionist thieves pulling off heists, which could not be more perfect.
I mean, the first movie is about them stealing money from a bank in Paris, so it is pretty apt.
Right. Wow. Even the setting.
Yeah.
Just perfect for everything. So as soon as the Louvre robbery happened, jokes online pretty much immediately erupted. I think there was a tweet that was essentially like, could this all be promo for the movie itself? Woody Harrelson also happens to be in Paris, and now I'm suspicious, which really just sums up how a lot of people are feeling about it. The reason why it's kind of working, even though it obviously started as an online joke, is that the timing is really just perfect. The Louvre robbery happened on October 19th. Movie release is on November 14th, which is like just enough time in between.
It's sort of like prime movie marketing moment.
Yes.
Is like you get people geared up a month before, so they start buying those tickets, they start making those plans.
The press tour is happening kind of in that in-between time, which is also key because both the cast and the studio have kind of leaned into the joke as well. Jesse Eisenberg, one of the stars of the movie, has been bringing it up at press interviews, and the interviewers are also aware of it and will bring it up, and he's like very game to talk about it, which always like makes it more fun, makes it more like believable. And the studio, Lionsgate, which has like a great social presence in the first place, knew about the joke and made a video directly referencing it, essentially setting it up to look like a press junket, a typical press tour video that was like, where were you guys on the evening or the morning of October 19th, and what were you doing? And the cast like shadily answers and is like, oh yeah, we were all together. We were in New York. Don't worry about it. So it's fun to see everyone just like acknowledge it and lean in, even though it's like kind of a serious world matter.
I feel like the evidence that this is working, at least anecdotally, is I did not know this movie was coming out, and now I absolutely do.
Totally.
Like, I had not seen a single ad, or maybe I had and it just didn't register. And now it's sort of like, oh, this is very top of mind for me. And I feel like it's just such a good example of like really knowing the culture and knowing that something's kind of game to jump in on early, so you can take advantage of the sort of fun jokiness. Again, it's a serious thing, but there's been lots of kind of references and memes around this, and this is kind of a great one for this movie.
I wonder too if it like boosted turnout. Jesse Eisenberg's been promoting that he's going to do magic shows in different parks in New York. I wonder if people showed up being like, I wonder if he's going to talk about it or if he's going to do something related to it.
Right. I mean, like the fact that the doing the magic in the park was also like already planned. It's like, oh, like they're using humor in this promotional tour already, so it all just kind of links together really well. But the really like cream on top for me, cherry on top, new phrase, is that they're not the only brand getting in on the Louvre as marketing, because the German company who actually makes the crane that was allegedly used,
The really slow moving crane that they took down for like 5 minutes.
Yes. It was allegedly used in the robbery. They realized that it was their crane that was used, and they turned it into a little marketing poster.
I think the tagline was, if you're in a hurry, and it just used an image from the crime scene, which is so, I mean, look, if you're in a hurry, like what better marketing moment is that?
They were in and out in like 8 minutes or something, so it was pretty fast. The owner was interviewed in a CBS story, and he did say that the device is not typically designed for personal use, and he does not support heists and robberies and does not want this to happen again, but it was a fun little moment.
But
and
if you happen to be considering it.
Right. So hopefully if you're in the market for a new crane, perhaps this will get you thinking about it. Well, if you guys could automate one thing out of your life, what would it be?
Folding my towels,
All my towels into swans. I was about to say the same thing. Oh my God.
Well, that is incredibly specific. Anyway, marketers, listen up, because you can automate busy work away with ActiveCampaign. Their autonomous marketing platform helps cut out the tedious parts for you, like building your email and SMS campaigns, optimizing them based on billions of data points, and summing up the results with clear next steps, not endless reports.
That way, you can spend more time on strategy and less time on the marketing admin. ActiveCampaign's specialized AI agents can extend your team and handle all that operational work so you get your message out there in minutes, not weeks.
Plus, you can align your message across every channel instead of losing things through the endless game of office telephone. Take all that work off your back when you go to activecampaign.com. That's activecampaign.com.
Okay, so you might think that the biggest holiday this past weekend was Halloween, but here in New York City, it was probably actually Marathon Sunday. Kelsey, I know you have feelings about marathons. What were the vibes like this weekend?
It was crisp. It was sunny. The vibes were amazing. I went out there for several hours cheering, crying, with a tambourine, with a cowbell, all of the stops. A great Sunday.
I love that for you. Well, I bring this up because marathons and running as a sport have kind of become a very unique avenue for sports marketing, really due to like increased interest in the sport and all the ways that brands can get involved. So I want to break down like why it's such a special way that brands can kind of like be in people's faces and build community and be out there. One of the ways that is very obvious is the naming rights. If I asked you guys right now who sponsors the New York City Marathon, like, would you be able to tell me who it is?
Absolutely, TCS.
Obviously, yes. TCS is a consultancy service, and they have actually pivoted their entire sports marketing strategy to like focus on marathons, which is really, really crazy.
Yeah. Alyssa Myers, our senior reporter who covers sports marketing for us, actually spoke to them, and they made that shift. And I think it's such a smart, move for them, because marathons are a logistical feat as much as they are sort of an athletic feat. And I think that that's kind of a really interesting thing. They just threw all in behind that. But there's so many more opportunities beyond the naming rights. And something that I think is really interesting, if you're out there as a spectator, like so many people were yesterday or on Sunday, or if you are running it, you are exposed to so many ads, so many brand sponsorships, the logos on people's shoes and their shirts, but also the Gatorade cups you might be grabbing, or the other branded items that are going to be on the side of the track. There are billboards. There's so much out of home, and there's such an opportunity to target not just the people watching the sport, but the people who are participating in the sport itself. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because if you watch a baseball game, there's not ads that are targeting the baseball players. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same thing. And I think that there's something so interesting about the marathon, is like so much of the marketing is really directed at the person who's running, who knows they are going to need to buy a new pair of shoes after this, because their shoes are going to be toast after all that training, after all that running. And so there's this opportunity for a lot of brands, maybe who are kind of adjacent in the sports apparel space or anything like that, to really get involved.
I think the signage is another unique opportunity too with the marathon, because you don't, like, to your point, you don't see people holding up signs at baseball games like you do at the marathon, where everybody's like trying to encourage the runners and they're putting up signs saying like, you can do this. Like Open Igloos saw an opportunity with this. It's a website where you can rate like your landlord and talk about your building in New York, but they put up signs that said like, run like your rent's gonna double, or like run like your landlord's behind you, and like use it as a marketing opportunity, but in a way that felt kind of like organic with that theme of encouragement and keeping the runners going.
Yeah, and I think that that's such an interesting thing about the New York Marathon in particular is the signage is such a moment for people to really stand out on social. Like it's a big social opportunity. You always see like the funniest signs or the signs that were the cutest. People bring their dogs so you can see their dog. There's all this kind of positivity around the marathon, particularly in New York City. But there are, of course, other cities where marathons are a big business and a big interest. Something I think is so interesting about this, and Alyssa also wrote about kind of the growth of this, is like the marathon is for a lot of participants, it's kind of the end of a bigger training period. And we've seen a lot of growth in some of these other adjacent run centric like brand opportunities. So there's a lot of popularity in run clubs. So and what we've seen is some brands that are maybe endemic to the sport. So maybe an apparel company, a shoe company might become involved in a run club, but then you're also seeing brands that maybe are not endemic to the sport. So I think Netflix at the end of last year partnered with a run club, and they did that to promote the show Nobody Wants This, which I think just came out for a new season. So, but they did that to kind of encourage some thinking about this show in a different way in this kind of social moment. So I think for brands, there's sort of a long tail effect. Maybe the marathon is sort of the end of that. Again, like the athletes themselves who are participating, there's all the work that goes into it beforehand. And so, if you are a brand, like there may be a cherry on top kind of moment where you show up for the marathon in a really big way, but then you kind of stay part of those athletes' continued journey. Because if you run one marathon, maybe you're thinking about another race in a couple months, once you finish up.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the run clubs are such a key part of running as a sport kind of being a bigger marketing opportunity, because it extends that timeline. It's not like you can only show up at the races themselves, but it also that is where a lot of people who are new to the sport or coming back to the sport or they're training for the sport are building their emotional connection to the experience with the communities that they form in these groups, and they come back week after week or day after day, depending how often these groups meet. And if you are a brand that is in that space, you're sponsoring those meetups, you are providing gear or you're providing a snack that they can try, you get to then integrate yourself into that community and that feeling that they are building over however long they are training for this marathon. And then they show up at the marathon and they do this big thing and they accomplish it. And it's you get to be a part of that story for so much longer than just the one race at the end of it all, which every brand wants to be able to say that someone is loyal to my brand, someone feels a particular way about my brand. And I think that there's something about that in the sport of running itself. Kelsey actually has run a marathon. Sorry to brag about you to our entire listener base. So I'm sure you felt that kind of feeling before.
I think that's exactly what it was. I ran the New York Marathon last year, and I remember waiting for the Staten Island ferry to get taken to the start race, and there was a big ad for Nike that said, running is awful, I love it. And I remember it was it felt like such... Everybody was feeling that sort of exact thing. We're oh my God, why did we do this to ourselves? Waiting to go to the start line. And that's such a great, I think about that all the time because that was a key, it's such a heightened emotional experience for a lot of people. You've been working at something for so long. It's very challenging mentally and physically. And then, when you have these brands really want to be a part of those sort of heightened emotional moments. And I think that that's really I will remember that ad for a really long time because I saw it at that moment where I was sort of taking the experience all in at once.
I mean, it was a big moment in your life and they were in the right place at the right time. So of course you remember it. The other piece about running and marathon marketing that's interesting to me is that the sport as a whole is actually not super TV centric. When you think about sports marketing, the TV ad buys are such a big part of it, but no one really sits down to watch running on TV. It's not exactly the most thrilling experience, but that is totally different compared to being in person. We just said at the top of the segment, we love cheering on, we love being there and actually being a part of that environment, which I feel speaks to how marketers continually are seeking that live experience feeling as well in experiential activations. And a marathon is kind of like the ultimate experiential activation. Had to be there, had to like experience it in real life to really be a part of it. So the brands that are continually involved like recognize this. Nike had said that they're like more concerned with creating products and experiences designed for runners. Bank of America is like really into like the ability to go very deep with a community more than like reaching as many people as possible through a TV audience. So I think that's an interesting way that it sets itself apart as well.
I think because we talked about this last week with like the importance of community marketing and out of home and stuff. I feel like this is just another example of that. Like even with the run clubs, like a lot of people join them to meet other people.
Yeah.
And with the marathon, there's a huge sense of community. I think people gather by neighborhood and they're really proud of like Fort Greene really turned out, Long Island City really turned out. They're really proud of like their neighborhood and how much they're cheering and all that stuff. So for brands to get involved in it, it just kind of feels like this idea of like fostering community and like goodwill and encouragement. And I think that's why it really resonates with people.
Yeah. Ultimately, too, like, yes, we see it the most in New York because we obviously are in New York, but you can see it in other cities as well. And I think that's best reflected in how fast race signups are really going. I think the Boston Marathon obviously happens, but they also have a Boston 5K that runs at the same time. And Alyssa talked to a representative there who said that those signups for the 5K was filled up in 21 minutes, which is just like kind of crazy to think about. So it's happening across the country at the various big races.
I was going to say, definitely a growing opportunity. There's a ton of interest in people running, and then there's obviously the brands will follow as they always do. Something that I know from experience is when you're done running the marathon, you want to go home and you want to binge Netflix for 5 hours and never set foot on your own feet again.
As you deserve to.
Which brings me to our next topic, which is Netflix's really big month. So they reported their earnings a couple weeks ago. But it's not just about their earnings. It's really kind of about what they're doing in the ad space. So one of the things that they said a couple weeks ago was Netflix reported record ad sales. So they said it was their best ad sales quarter ever. And they expect to more than double their ads revenue this year. We know, and we've talked about on this show, that Netflix is really investing in making their advertising business really strong. They made their streaming business very strong. Now they've pushed into advertising, and they're really trying to prop that up and make it a really strong business. But one of the things that I think is going to be really interesting is they said that to help speed up kind of some more of this ad investment that we're seeing, U.S. upfronts commitments doubled earlier this year. They said it's investing in really using generative AI to help with these ad formats. So what they said in their shareholders letter to investors is that we are using AI to test new ad formats, generate the most relevant ad creative and placement for members, and for faster development of media plans. So the idea is that they'll be able to test, iterate, and innovate on dozens of ad formats by 2026. One of the things that I think is very interesting is that Netflix is not the only business that's going to do this. Have you guys, what do you guys think about AI coming to help sort of support Netflix's ad game?
I'm not surprised. I mean, everyone's trying to integrate AI into their ads business. I think what's interesting about this is that it's specifically about placement, right? So it's using AI to, correct me if I'm wrong, like analyze where in a show that you're already watching, if you pause it, if there's a mid-roll ad, to place an ad that is related to the content you're seeing, which obviously makes it a lot more personalized. And that would probably be pretty gritty work for someone to like sit and like actually go through every script in the bajillion that are in Netflix's library. So it's an interesting use. I wonder how it would feel on the consumer side to be like, oh, like I paused my show, my cooking show, and now like a KitchenAid ad is playing. Maybe you like it, maybe it's relevant, maybe it's like, this feels a little bit weird.
Yeah, what do you think, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I think, wasn't there also an element of like creative too? Like they're going to use AI to generate creative that kind of feels like it's integrated into the world of the show that you're watching. I'm curious to see if that one kind of triggers more of an uncanny valley reaction where people are like, is this part of my show or is this an ad? And like maybe getting upset that they were kind of tricked.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's going to be very interesting, and Netflix is not the only streamer that's trying to figure out how to make generative AI work, for their ads business. But there is a lot of talk in the industry about using it to actually develop the creative itself. And I think part of the pitch is that if you are an advertiser and you don't have a humongous budget, maybe you haven't spent in TV before, are there tools that make the creative process actually easier? But we also know, we've talked about on this show, that consumers aren't always super keen on AI generated ad creative. They often might notice it and it might not sit well with some of them. And then of course there are some who don't mind at all. And so I kind of wonder if this is going to be the new normal in streaming. What you said, Jenna, about some of these kind of, I would say, context-aware placements using AI, using some of the natural language processing to figure out where things should be placed. I think that's going to come in 2026. And then, of course, we're going to see sort of how else this develops. But I really do think that this is one of the ways that Netflix is trying to figure out how do we monetize all this IP that we have.
It kind of set itself apart too, right? From like all the other streamers that you could be getting involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think I mentioned in the last segment, we talked about Nobody Wants This, Netflix doing a running club thing for Nobody Wants This. But one of the ways that they're also really kind of bringing advertisers along for the ride is with product placement. Have you guys seen any product placement in some Netflix shows that you've, noticed that stood out to you?
I think last year I wrote about Emily in Paris, how a lot of luxury brands were getting involved and like inserting themselves into the show. I've also talked to some people about like To All the Boys I've Loved before and like some other Netflix IP where they really integrated brands front and center, some more effectively than others. I think To All the Boys, I remember when I interviewed about that one, it was like the Yakult brand of yogurt sold out. It was like this Korean brand of yogurt in the show, and like not many people were aware of it, and people started trying it out because they saw it in this movie. And then with Nobody Wants This, more recently, I think we've seen kind of the opposite reaction where people are like, this feels like too much. Like there's a lot of brand placement in this show. Yeah. It doesn't feel supernatural.
Yeah, it's an interesting difference between those two examples in particular, because I feel like, yes, I definitely saw the reaction with Nobody Wants This, where people were like, this is really obvious and like really in your face. And people will take screenshots of that and they'll post about it and be like, really? Like, you're obviously selling to me right now. Whereas To All the Boys I've Loved Before, like, I'm glad you brought up that example, Katie, because I can remember that scene, but like, I feel like that was such a good one because it was related to the story. Like, it was like a specific like cultural product that, yeah, some audiences might not have known about before, but some audiences are like, oh yes, this fits into the story very, very well. Like it's actually important to the scene that we're watching and it's not just like obviously there. So it's interesting to see like how well product placement has worked for Netflix, depending on the show that they're actually putting it into.
Yeah, I think in the Nobody Wants This example that stood out the most to me, it was like there's a scene where she like puts on like a night serum over her makeup and everyone's like, well, that's not how that works. In what world would you do that?
Yeah, if you're going to put a product in, like you got to make sure you're actually using it correctly.
We need some skincare girlies reviewing this script.
Yeah, definitely. Well, product placement is not the only thing that Netflix, I feel like, is also a really big leader on in the marketing world. They're also pushing into experiential. They announced a while back that they are going to be launching Netflix House, which is like I think it's like 100,000 square foot area.
I would say almost theme park type situation.
Yeah, launching in a couple cities across the U.S., Philly, Dallas, and then Las Vegas, I believe, next year, which is coming soon. I'm actually going to head over on Monday to see what it all looks like and maybe talk to some people about what's going on there. So it's really just continuing to bring the Netflix brand outside of just the streamer as well. So there's a lot for them to be doing.
Yeah, and something that I think is going to be very, very interesting, a very interesting piece of news. According to Reuters, Netflix is actively exploring a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery's studio and streaming business.
Dun, dun, dun.
So obviously the question is this actually going to happen? But I think that is such an interesting it's an interesting piece of news to kind of evaluate when you think about the moves that Netflix is making right now. Warner Brothers Discovery, as we know, also has a lot of IP that is very, very, I would say, valuable, very recognizable.
legacy
Harry
brands,
Potter,
yeah.
Game of Thrones,
Barbie.
yeah. So there's a ton of this that Warner Brothers Discovery has. Warner Brothers' studio also makes a lot of Netflix hits, so it feels like there's a little bit of a continuity there. But I really wonder what it would also mean kind of in the ad space, because HBO Max also has an ads business. We've covered that. We've talked about that before, and that's continuing to grow. They're doing a lot of the same things, figuring out how generative AI is going to work to support their ads business. And then there's also kind of the question of time spent streaming, which I think is, again, if you are running an ad-supported business, you need people to tune in for a long time. So they're either seeing the branded placements in your show, they're pausing the show, and you're being able to serve pause ads in many cases, or you're able to run mid-roll ads or pre-roll ads the more they watch. Netflix right now, according to Nielsen, has 8.3% of time spent streaming on TVs. And Warner Brothers Discovery, their streaming services have 1.3%. And the big one to beat, of course, as we've talked about before, is YouTube, which right now has 12.6% of all streaming. So that would increase if we just combined those two instantaneously and nothing else were to change. That would bump up Netflix's total time spent. And I think that that's something to really keep an eye on here, because again, the name of the game for advertisers is engagement. And so if you are a media company and you're selling ads, you need to have an engaged audience, whether that's them showing up to a Netflix house, that's them talking about your shows and seeing your brand placements, or, watching all those sweet, sweet ads on your streaming services.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we know awards are a big marketing machine for Netflix, whether it's an Emmy or a Golden Globe or an Oscar. Now we're seeing social is really trying to jump on this bandwagon and bring more awards to the space. The latest here is TikTok, which is going to be hosting a live awards show on December 18th at the Hollywood Palladium in LA, giving out accolades as part of the TikTok Awards, like Creator of the Year, Video of the Year, Muse of the Year, and Breakthrough Artist of the Year. The show's going to be live on TikTok and on Tubi. So what do you guys think? Is this going to be like the new VMAs or the new Grammys?
I'm sure they hope it will be.
We love a red carpet sort of moment. I think this is so funny because I think we've talked about how culturally powerful an awards show can be, because people are posting the red carpet looks. They're talking about who's winning what. It's a huge kind of moment to promote the brand, and for creators, and again, for actors, actresses, studios to promote themselves. So I think bringing it into the creator space is going to be an interesting way for creators to try to stand apart, highlight the work that they're doing.
It legitimizes the creator industry even more.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sort of trying to put it on par with maybe the more traditional entertainment industry.
Yeah.
We're coming off, like last month, Instagram announced Instagram Rings, which was their creator award, which actually already happened. We were not aware, but we saw that they actually gave out their Ring Awards to creators. And one of the award winners was Olivia Dean, the singer.
Oh, wow.
I've seen,
Congrats
congrats to Olivia Dean. I've seen some tweets where people are like, why is the background of her Instagram page pink? And the reason is because she won one of these awards, which gives you access to be able to change the background of your profile, but people didn't really know. So I would argue like there wasn't a huge cultural impact of the Instagram Ring Awards. So what I'm curious to see is like with TikTok making it a big live event with a red carpet, with content being created on the scene, with all these creators in one room together who can then, create UGC, is this going to be a bigger cultural moment?
Yeah, I think that's the key difference between those two awards. Obviously, they're big competitors to each other, and the fact that one happened and we weren't super aware of it and other viewers weren't super aware of it, and this is going to happen, and it is a whole big event. It just kind of like it gives you more time to interact with it. I think there's voting involved too. So like as viewers and fans, you can get involved with who's actually winning the awards. As a frequent Dancing with the Stars voter, I love to participate when my people are doing fun things. So I think it's kind of a smart move. And it also like simultaneously is good marketing for the creators that are getting recognized, right? Like they get to then like tout that they won a TikTok award, but it's also good marketing for TikTok as a brand, right? To be like, we put on this big event. Here are ways that sponsors can get involved, that we are special and important enough to have like reserved a space and put like broadcast it on, I believe it's on TikTok. Like it's just creating it into so much more of a thing than like, here's a ring on your profile and you can change the colors.
I also think there's a brand opportunity. Elf is sponsoring the awards. So of course, advertisers want to figure out ways to break through. Elf has had a lot of success on TikTok. So that feels very natural. And we've also seen, advertisers get very involved in other awards, new and old. It's a very kind of classic place to stand out. I do wonder what this will mean and how much this will break through, because again, the promise of creators in UGC is that it's niche. And so bringing it together, trying to make it universal and not niche is a kind of an interesting challenge.
Yeah, a little bit of a departure for sure.
But we'll see what people decide on. The voting opens on November 18th and wraps on December 2nd. So we'll see later next month who wins these prestigious awards.
I'm rooting for some people. I won't say who. It's fun. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you want to tell us what TikTok creator you might be voting for, send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. Can't wait to hang out with you guys again next week.